So I'd like to invite the next speaker, Ms. Soe Nandar Linn. The topic is natural resource and subnational governance in Myanmar. Ms. Soe Nandar Linn is a national consultant for the World Bank's Public Financial Management Project based in the Ministry of Finance in Myanmar. She also works as a research associate at the Myanmar Development Resource Institute. This is a think tank led by the chief economic advisor to the president of Myanmar. She also involved in working for the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, EITI. So, Ms. Nanda-san, you have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Professor Kudo. Thank you. Mingalaba, good afternoon, everyone. Before I start my presentation, I would like to thank NIAS and conference organizer for having me to this very important event emphasizing on Myanmar issues. It is really an opportunity to meet and all of you, and I do hope that we will have future collaboration between institutes in India and young researchers like me from Myanmar. My presentation reflects neither World Bank nor MDRI, that my former organization. I only would like to share my thoughts with all of you based on my experience. My presentation consists of 4 parts, and the first one begins from the ownership and responsibilities of natural resources in Myanmar, and then I will talk about the current political and institutional reforms during the transition, and the third part of my presentation highlights the role of subnational governments in natural resource sector, and the last part emphasizes key challenges and opportunities of resource sector and decentralization process in Myanmar. And this is the map of natural resources from Burma News International, the institute that established papers focusing on peace process. This natural resources map shows that the majority of natural resource-based economic activities, in this case, I would like to highlight the extractive resource sector, that mining, oil and gas. These are highly concentrated in ethnic states, and some are in conflict areas. Mining sites are distributed throughout many states and regions in Myanmar, and among all mining sites, large-scale mining such as Labradong Copper Mine in Zagai, Mogok Gem mines in Mandalay, and Pakan Jade mines in Kachin up north are well known. Regarding the oil and gas sector, the major offshore sites are Yedana and Yedago-Zotika and Shui Gas Field. Gas pipelines run from Shui Gas Field to China and from Yedana and Yedagon to Thailand. In next section, we have a Myanmar representative who will talk about energy sector. So I will not talk detail about this in my presentation. And according to the 2008 constitutions of 2008 constitutions, Article 34, all lands and natural resources above and below the ground, as well as above and beneath water and atmosphere, is owned by the Union. Both supervision and utilization of extraction is in the hand of the state sector, and line ministries issue license. According to Myanmar Directorate of Investment and Company Administration, DICA, the foreign direct investment in 2013 is with a large share of mining, hydropower, and oil and gas. However, due to the poorly managed natural resource sector and lack of transparency, the Revenue Watch Institute ranked Myanmar as having the worst resource governance among 58 countries studied in 2013. Extractive resource sector revenue contributes significantly to Myanmar's economy. And according to the government official statistical data, estimated export value of minerals for the budget year of 2013 and 14 is US dollar 1,150.2 million. Government also conducted a gem emporium annually in Naypyidaw that the sales reached US dollar 3.4 billion in 2014. And based on the IMF data, natural gas export is 34% of total export and 7% of GDP. But with underdeveloped infrastructure and a negligible investment in human resources development, Myanmar is ranking 149th among 185 countries rated in the 2013 Human Development Report of the UNDP. Although Myanmar natural resource sector has lots of potential, since we manage, if we manage well and sustainably, it will benefit to the people. Otherwise, it creates conflicts and tensions, as we are facing with mega projects like Mysong Dam project, which is suspended in September in 2011. But it only can guarantee during the President U Thein Sein's administration, and people do not know what will happen next. Another one is Labadao copper mining project, where we have conflict between local communities and military-owned Myanmar Economic Holding Company joint venturing with Chinese Wanbao Company. Here I would like to talk about the transition of Myanmar. At the first step of political reform, the government has taken significant steps to release political prisoners and reach preliminary ceasefire agreement with ethnic armed groups. Apart from that, Aung San Suu Kyi and her political party, NLD, National League for Democracy, has joined the country's mainstream politics and stood for by-elections in April 2011. And as you all know that her party won 43 seats out of 45. In 2012, the government abolished direct media censorship. Decades of isolationism and mismanaged macroeconomic policies made Myanmar one of the poorest countries in the world. Thus, after President U Thein Sein's government initiated political reconciliation with opposition groups, they paid attention to key economic reforms, including exchange rate unification, trade and investment liberalization, rationalization of tax rates, fiscal transparency, as well as land reform by establishing new land law. And in the second wave in Myanmar, reform is taken according to the waves. This is the terminology that the government uses. So in the second wave of reform addressed by the President Thein Sein on the 12th of May and 19th of June in 2012, highlighting Myanmar's Planning Commission approved framework for economic and social reforms, is the milestone priorities of the government of Myanmar before 2015. Our previous speaker already talked about that, focusing on agricultural sector. But here, I would like to emphasize on the decentralization and resource sector. FESR is the document, actually it is prepared by academics and returnees to Myanmar, but the ownership is the government of Myanmar. All the ministries have to collaborate together to work on this. It covers public finances, monetary policy, trade and investment, private sector development, food and agricultural development, health and education, and the emergence of an effective and efficient governing system and transparency. I will highlight the FESR's priorities regarding the subnational development in next slide. So I will continue the third wave of the reform. So in the third wave of reform, President U Thein Sein stressed rural development as a key focus area of Myanmar's economic development, and the focus needs to be on assistance to farmers. During the reform process, the government of Myanmar is facing with challenges, especially land tenure and property rights of smallholder farmers, due to the lack of coordination of legal and land use management framework. These are happening mainly in the extractive resource-based mega projects area. In FESR that I mentioned briefly earlier, the government of Myanmar addressed the importance of subnational development through decentralization process. Public administration reform and strategic resource allocation are also crucial for the effective service delivery to local community. This is the administrative structure based on the 2008 Constitution. We have a speaker in the morning session talk about this already. So here I would like to focus on the role of general administration departments and the military-led Ministry of Home Affairs, which is the backbone of subnational administration. It is a unit of since it is the Ministry of Home Affairs, they have the decision-making, somewhat decision-making power at the subnational level governance. So at the subnational level parliament, parliamentarians are empowered to enact laws related to matters defined by Schedule 2 under Article 188 of 2008 Constitution. They can discuss the medium and small-scale electrical power production and distribution, salt products, cutting and polishing gemstone within the region or state, village firewood plantation, and recreation centers. It is clear that they are not influential on government's mega projects. When we look at the states and region poverty conducted by the Ministry of National Planning and Economic Development, Chin State is the poorest state among all states and regions. However, this pattern will be changed in current situation as this was conducted in 2010. And what I found out is that in 2014 national census, the life expectancy of Ayawari is the lowest in Myanmar and Rakhine State as well. So so as I said before that the pattern will be changed in this 2015. And it is important to consider the development status in ethnic states for stable change and institutionalization, a more balanced economic relationship between the central and subnational level in order to break the complex link between natural resources, conflict, and poverty in Myanmar. There are key challenges of subnational governments in natural resources management. Since they do not have ownership and incentive to manage natural resources, they do not have power and interest in negotiating with the central government. However, this scenario will be different if we have elected chief ministers in states and regions. Another challenge is that they do not have capacity and their spending and revenue collecting power is limited. Importantly, role and responsibilities between appointed senior officers, especially the General Administration Department staff and sub-national ministers, is unclear. Due to the weak of statistical data, it is difficult to illustrate economic gaps between ethnic groups, which is crucial for policy-making process, especially for decentralization. There are challenges, but the government of Myanmar has established a working group to improve public financial management, and Myanmar has become a candidate country of a EITI, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, in July 2014. EITI is a process and it is not a treaty or law. Since the government is facing with extractive resource-based industry in the initial stage, like Mysong Dam and copper mining project during their administration, They try to apply for the International Standardized Transparency Initiative in the extractive resource sector. But still, mapping responsibility for resource extraction and revenue flow in Myanmar remains an exercise in patching together available information and identifying gaps. So I would like to conclude that for the long-term stability in Myanmar, it ultimately relies on introducing a more balanced relationship between central and subnational governments, more responsible management of natural resources by local communities, a comprehensive policy framework, and transparent policy-based fiscal transfer for equitable resource sharing in Myanmar. Currently, the Ministry of Finance is developing a policy-based budgeting model starting from this fiscal year, and hopefully that because in this natural resource management case, it is important to Ministry of Finance plays an important role. So in that case, in Myanmar case, since the Ministry of Finance does not have power, we still have many challenges to overcome this. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer questions after the next speaker. Thank you.
Ms. Soe Nandar Linn, thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. Actually, the state and regional parliament and government was first established in Myanmar since independence in 1948, based on the 2008 constitution. So the local government, the division of the labor or the responsibility between the national government, union level government, and the subnational, the local state government is the first experience for your Myanmar. So thank you very much for your very interesting presentation.